in my particular case, and this is why I keep reiterating this, is, my family saw things a little differently. They were kind of making light of it. It's not a big deal. Why are you so worried about it? And when I hear guys like yourself who have families who understand it and embrace it, I kind of felt a little crazy. I felt like, why am I so worried about this? My family doesn't think it's a big deal. Why does it bother me so much? But they understood you, and I think they kind of, they gave credence to your concerns, and that makes the process a lot easier for you.
It does, because when I went to see some doctors, they even told me it's not a really big problem. I should just go on with it, and they're like, nothing happened, or something like that. And even if my parents were there with me and heard all those things that the doctor told me,
right,
they encouraged me to move forward and take some actions against it.
Well, you're lucky. Okay, so fast forward. This is years ago when you started to lose your hair. You are now how old?
Now I'm 25.
Okay, so at the age of 24, you decided to go for it. You decided to have a hair transplant. You decided to fly to Turkey to have a hair transplant. That's a pretty daunting situation. I mean, especially for a young guy, you're going to basically another world in a sense, a completely different culture, to have surgery. What was that like?
It was intense. It was I was stressed about it because I spent nights after nights online reading stuff, reading stories, seeing different pictures, wondering if they are fake or not, or it's time consuming. But in the end, it's worthy.
It's interesting that you said that, because it can be all consuming, and that sometimes it's so consuming that people are doing so much research that they're afraid to pull the trigger because they don't know what's true, what's real, and that's the problem with the internet. And frankly, that's the problem with internet message forums. At Bald Truth Talk, what we really try to do is create a really safe environment for people. And, we want to make sure there's no phony users. We want to make sure that clinics aren't bashing each other. We want to make sure that users or administrators or moderators aren't really involved in the decision-making process. We just want to give people what's real. And sometimes, even in our scenario, it's difficult to know because, the consumer comes in and they're like, all right, well, these pictures look too good to be true. How can this possibly be? I saw the guy down the block with a hair transplant, and I was able to notice it. So, I mean, it is taking a leap of faith to move forward, especially when you're doing most of your research, if not all of your research, online.
Yeah, and I did all my research online.
Yeah, well, listen, you found a great doctor. Dr. Doganay is an accepted member of the IAHRS. He is one of the few doctors in his part of the world who is recommended by the American Hair Loss Association, and that's not easy to do. So you did your research, and I'm assuming that you're calling because you had a good result.
Yes, I had a great result, and I'm very happy, and I want to share my experience, and maybe a guy or someone who listens now decides to go for a life-changing experience.
So it was that life-changing for you. Tell us about it. How did it change your life?
Yes, it was life-changing because I went from being a pretty direct, forward guy to a shy guy, and now I feel like I'm 21 again, maybe 17 years old.
That's
because
great.
I think I have a lot more hair now than 5 or 6 years ago.
So
I'm more confident now than ever.
Are you noticing that your peers, that women your age, that people at work or in school, are they relating to you differently? Do you notice that they're kind of engaging more I mean, or did you not notice a difference when you were losing your hair? I mean, how do you think your friends, your family, and just the general public are relating to you now?
Differently, because I saw a change when I lost my hair, and we, some people that we just met and told me like that I was like 27 years old when I was 23,
Yeah, that's tough.
and it's tough, and it's heavy on your mind.
Yes.
But now I feel they give me 1 or 2 years less than I have. Tell me that I look like 21 years old when I'm 25.
Yeah.
So it's a big change.
That's amazing. I have a question. What's that noise in the background? Is that your phone?
Yeah, it's my phone.
Okay.
Sorry for
No,
that.
that's okay. I was just I
Some,
wanted to
some
make
messages.
I wanted to make sure that it wasn't on my end. That's fine. That's fine that it's on your end. I already made the mistake, so don't worry about it. Well, I think that's a very important message. When people ask me why I do what I do, and they've been asking me this for a long time, I try to explain to them what a profound effect hair loss has on people's lives. Those who aren't dealing with hair loss could never understand it. Now, I started to noticed losing my hair at 21 years old, and it threw me into a tailspin. I didn't know how to handle it because I didn't expect it. It wasn't something that I thought was going to happen to me because I didn't see it in my immediate family. To this day, I am 49 years old. I will go to a party here in Los Angeles. And initially, when people either recognize me or find out what I do for the first time, the first thing is they kind of take a shot at it. And then all of a sudden, I'm being called into the kitchen or into the bathroom or someplace to look at somebody's hair. So I know how it affects people. I know how prevalent it is. I know how many people have, read my books and have listened to this radio broadcast or have watched us online who really care about it. But for some reason, society still doesn't kind of accept this as a real issue and makes guys feel like there's something wrong with them when they start to mourn their hair or they feel uncomfortable with their hair loss. And that's why I think guys like you calling in, especially calling in from another part of the world like Romania, it really just shows the common thread when it comes to hair loss, that it affects us, most of us, all in a very similar way. And it's very real.
Yeah. It affects us on all aspects of our lives.
Absolutely.
From dating to anything, just anything.
And that's the truth. And you're a young guy. And listen, I don't want to keep you. I got some other calls to take. But so the bottom line is, you ended up having a hair transplant. How many grafts did you have placed? And obviously, if you went with Dr. Doganay, you had the FUE method.
Yes, I had the IFUE, around 1,700, 600 and something single, 700 double, and around 400 triple.
Okay, so you really know you've really done your research, because the fact that you're able to recite that to me shows that you have a real understanding of the process. And even guys who have had surgery who think they've done their research, they may understand, they know the number of grafts, but they don't know the difference between singles, doubles, triples. They're not really, they don't really have really great insight of how follicular unit extraction really works and just what a demanding process it is. So you sound like you've really, really done your research. So let's talk about the end result. And first of all, let me ask, are you on Propecia now?
No, yes, I am on Propecia.
And how do you feel on the drug? How have you done on the drug?
I feel it's working great for me. The first time I took it, I was like 24. Immediately after the surgery, Dr. Hakan Doganay recommended it for me with some other drugs, and it worked. It worked more than all right, because I've noticed some other parts of my head when I had a bit of a problem. that now the hair is more dense than before.
See, that's so important for me to hear, and I think it's really important for young guys to hear because there's such a scare about alopecia. I understand it. Like I think if I would have read about the scary adverse effects on the internet before I started, I probably never would have gotten on the drug. But for someone like you, for someone like me, for someone, for millions of guys who have had success with the drug itself is life-changing. And especially if you want to get surgical hair restoration, because you're expending the emotional time and emotional energy to have a hair transplant, which is it's like a roller coaster, just waiting for, going to have surgery, spending the money, whatever it is, and, not to mention the financial burden. But if you're not really doing the best you can to protect your native hair and to even protect the grafts that are being moved, I really think that hair transplantation can be much more of a temporary fix when you're not using a drug like finasteride. And I think it's important for young guys to hear this because if you're starting out young, you want to do everything you possibly can to protect those grafts, to protect that hair transplant, and to protect and even improve your native hair, because in the long run, you will have a much better long-term result. And I'm glad that you decided to do that, and I'm glad that you're one of the guys that had a good experience.
Yes, I had a great experience with Propecia or Proscar, how it's also known in this part of the world.
So you have no side effects or anything?
No side effects. I did read all the stuff about side effects, and I'm happy I'm not one of those experiencing.
But you're young
some
guy,
of them.
You're a young guy that must have scared you. I mean, what made you choose to take the drug, even though you read all this stuff?
The feeling I had when I started losing my hair.
Yeah.
That's what pulled the trigger in my head, and I said, I'm gonna do it no matter what. I'm gonna do it, and I had a positive attitude, and I wasn't concerned about side effects. I read about them, but I just thought I'm not gonna be one of those 1%.
Well, look, when I took the drug, this is before it was approved by the FDA. I had doctors saying that I was going to grow breasts, I was going to be feminized, I would never be able to have sex, all this stuff. I was so concerned about my hair that I said, you know what? I'll take a shot. I'll give it a chance. And if it wasn't for that drug, if I didn't decide to take that first Proscar, which was a 5 milligram dose of finasteride back in the day, I never would have written my book. I never would have written my second book, and I never would have been doing this radio show for the last 16 years. And really, giving people a platform like yourself to talk about an issue that society doesn't allow us to talk about. So for me, finasteride not only completely changed my life, but I believe changed the lives of the millions of people who have found our resources, who have read my books, and who've been a part of this radio show. Whether they took the drug or not, at least they were able to have a place to learn. So let's get back to your hair transplant. You had 1,700 grafts. Not a lot of work, but for some people, if the work is done well, if the grafts are utilized correctly and placed well, it can have a life-changing effect and a real significant effect on your appearance. I'm assuming that's what happened with you.
Yeah, but in the beginning, I wasn't very happy about the number. I wanted like 2,000 grafts. But and I was sincerely, I was afraid that the surgery didn't went all right, because I kept my short trimmed very shortly for like 4 months before I decided to give it a shot, and let's see how it looks after a few months.
So that's interesting that you said that. So the first few months you were a little anxiety ridden because you were concerned about the low number of grafts, and you initially thought, well, maybe this didn't go so well, and that's a very common fear amongst guys. We call it buyer's remorse here in the States, and when it comes to hair transplants, especially, it's kind of like a lot of guys have buyer's remorse. They're not sure if they made the right decision. They see numbers online, like 4,000 grafts or 3,300 grafts, and think that that's the only way to go. But I've seen guys who have had conservative, amount of grafts moved where their look is completely changed.
Yeah, probably that's what happened in my case, and the hairline now looks great, and everything is it's more than all right, and I'm very, very happy with the result.
Well, listen, I'm glad you took the time to call in. It means a lot, believe me. I mean, I appreciate it. I mean, you're calling from Romania, but it means a lot for our listeners and for our viewers to hear the stories of young guys like yourself. Because honestly, while even guys my age or older, we're all concerned about our hair loss. Um, there's a certain impact it has on a young man's life that is something that's difficult to articulate unless it happens to you. And these guys, I'm sure, are very appreciative to hear your story. And I'm so glad that you've had success and you've had a successful hair transplant and you've done well on Finasteride. What would your advice be to someone your age or younger who's dealing with hair loss?
Just to follow their instinct, their gut, and but do their homework and do their research.